Thanks for joining us. The latest tariff threats from U.S. President Donald Trump have Canadian premiers demanding action. The call comes a day after Trump again threatened Canada to impose a 50% tariff on multiple Canadian goods, ranging from honey to hockey sticks, starting in 30 days. Trump told reporters in the Oval Office today that he loves the people of Canada, but claimed the country needs the United States to survive. At a meeting Tuesday in Charlottetown, Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe says it's time for Canadian trade officials to dig in.
Those three individuals that I had mentioned, Janet Charest, Ambassador Wiseman, and Dominic LeBlanc, to essentially camp out in Washington, D.C. and meet at every opportunity that we can. And I would say it's not just Canadians that need a reviewed and renewed CUSMA agreement, the country of Mexico and Mexicans as well. But most importantly, I think Americans. Americans represent 26% of global GDP. They're a significant part of the GDP on Earth, and they're very closely geographically aligned with us.
I spoke with President Trump earlier this morning. We agreed to intensify negotiations in the coming weeks, and the team and myself look forward to doing that. As always, Canadians, governments, business, labor will stand together to build Canada strong and to have a trading relationship with our North American partners that benefits everybody.
The Prime Minister was added to the Premier's agenda today in the wake of the U.S. tariffs announced yesterday. Under these new tariffs, there would be no exemptions for goods compliant with the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Agreement on Trade, which has served as a shield for Canadian exporters in previous rounds of tariffs. Energy, potash, critical minerals, fish, and goods are already targeted by the U.S. for Section 2-32. Tariffs are not affected by the latest duties. Ontario Premier Doug Ford wants Canada to take even stronger action in response to these new U.S. tariffs. He wants to see retaliatory tariffs.
If these talks fail in 29 days, we need to hit them back as hard as we can. I'm tired of the bully trying to take our lunch money all the time. We always seem to be on our back heels. We need to be on the offense, not constantly on the defense with President Trump. We need to stand up to the bully, and we need to hit him tariff to tariff, all the way across the board. It's $28 billion across the country. Majority is going to be here in Ontario. That's why we can't roll over. We have to hit back.
Ford also says he wants to see support from the other provinces when it comes to standing up to Trump's tariffs, noting it can't always be Ontario that does. He says Canada is an energy powerhouse that can dismantle the U.S. if that was the goal and if everyone worked together. Ontario is in the middle of its worst fire season on record. The province's latest numbers suggest some 200 fires have burned through more than 7,200 square kilometers of Ontario's forest, surpassing the previous record set in 2021. It's the latest sign of what scientists have warned could be a new era of extreme wildfire activity in Canada.
I'm not surprised by it just because of the projections that we had early on this year. So we knew from Environment and Climate Change Canada that this summer was going to be hotter than normal for most of the country and drier than normal for parts of the country. And Ontario fit right into both of those, and it looked like a riskier area for wildfire this year. Due to climate change, we also have more fire weather, which means hot, dry, windy days that help spread those flames. And so the really big wildfire that we're seeing right now in northwestern Ontario was actually caused by lightning storms. So usually wildfires are caused by lightning and some are human caused. These ones were particularly started by lightning storms and followed by days of a lot of heat. So it's just the perfect conditions to have those fires spread. And so, so what's changing for us is that we have more dry weather and more of those windy days to help spread the flames.
The largest contributor to Ontario's wildfire total is a massive 3,188 square kilometer fire north of Thunder Bay. It is now day 6 of the search for missing 11-year-old Parker Wells from Calgary. The autistic boy wandered away from his day home last Thursday morning while police and volunteers continue their search. Calgarians in the Thorncliffe area have been asked to search their backyards and sheds. With an update on the search, here is BCN's Naveen Day.
Now, in a social media post on Monday, Incident Commander for the search, Staff Sergeant Becky Spohr, provided an update on the search efforts, as well as the technology that's being utilized to help locate the missing boy.
To date, search teams have covered more than 6,500 kilometers. That's roughly the distance between Calgary and Dublin. What you're seeing behind me is one of the tools we're using to track and document search efforts. This technology allows us to record searches in real time using GPS and cellular data. Every area that is searched is carefully documented. This helps us track where teams have been, what search methods have been used, and where additional searches may be needed.
Police also released new CCTV footage of Parker on Monday. You can see him there on the right-hand side of the image. And this was taken Thursday, July 16th at approximately 12:34 p.m. near McKnight Boulevard and Centre Street Northwest. Now, one issue of importance Calgary police are asking of the public. If you are using artificial intelligence to create or edit materials related to the search for Parker, just stop. Or if you encounter such content about the missing child, police ask that you not share it. At a Monday press conference, Acting Staff Sergeant Scott Gutterson spoke about the impact AI-generated images are having on the investigation.
It can divert resources from a legitimate search path, and we want to caution the public from essentially, I'll say this: if it seems too ridiculous to be true, it probably is. Anything we action, we verify first. That's what the investigation is for. If we have verified information, obviously that helps us find Parker.
And it appears that false information is also being spread around. Police said, for example, there was a false report stating that Parker had been found dead. They say the search for the boy is still very much active, and the hope remains that he will be found alive. If you have legitimate CCTV footage or dashcam footage from the Thorncliffe area from Thursday to today, even if you don't see Parker in your footage, you are asked to submit it to CPS by uploading it to the Calgary Police Service website. For Bridge City News, I'm Naveen Day.
Thank you, Naveen. The CFL Saskatchewan Roughriders are mourning the loss of their captain, Jayden Dulkey. Mounties say Dulkey was killed Saturday night in a crash on Highway 11 near Lumsden, northwest of Regina. RCMP say he was driving on the wrong side of the highway with alcohol and cannabis in his SUV when his vehicle crashed into another, killing him and the driver of the other vehicle, a 22-year-old Bhishma Rajaguru from Regina.
My condolences to Jayden's family, and obviously the other victim's family. Is a terrible tragedy. Obviously we didn't have a lot of information. We still don't have a lot of information. That's new information that we just received when you received it as well. So it's just an unfortunate tragedy, and we're really sorry for both victims.
I spoke with JD when he was on his way home here. I think that's the toughest part is talking to him that close in proximity to obviously what all happened, but I think the one thing that I'll always be able to look back on and kind of smile at is we told each other, we said we love each other when we signed off the phone, so the last thing I ever said was that I loved him, so yeah, I think that's something I'll always be able to take solace in, at least.
I understand there's an investigation going on, so there's not going to be kind of any assumptions at this point, man, but the main thing, my thoughts just on obviously Dog's family, our guys, and obviously there's another family involved as well. So just lots of waves of emotion for a lot of people. Just sad, man.
The Riders are scheduled to host the Edmonton Elks on a Thursday night at Mosaic Stadium. It's National Drowning Prevention Week, and with these hot temperatures, it's a timely reminder of the importance of staying safe around water. The message carries even more weight in southern Alberta, where an 11-year-old boy drowned at Coaldale Regional Park in Medicine Hat during a school field trip last month. And just 2 weeks ago, here in Lethbridge, 6 boaters had to be rescued after becoming stranded near the Old Man River Weir. On Tuesday, Lethbridge Fire and Emergency Services water rescue team demonstrated on-water rescue techniques while highlighting the hazards of the Old Man River and sharing practical tips to help residents stay safe while boating, paddling, floating, or swimming.
The number one thing is always to wear a life jacket. It doesn't matter how accomplished a swimmer you are, and you need to be wearing a PFD. This is never a safe place to recreate. It's okay to fish below it, to launch your boats again below it, but actually being anywhere in the turbulent water around this weir is very dangerous. Make sure your flotation devices are approved flotation devices. You want to take your cell phone with you. Go buy a waterproof container for that. If you get into trouble, you can contact emergency services. Go out and buy yourself a pair of river shoes. Please remember, alcohol and drugs do not mix with water. Let someone know what your plan is. And lastly, keep an eye on your kids, keep an eye on your dogs. If you're recreating close to the river, conditions on the river can change very quickly. It could be raining 10 kilometers from here, and that can very quickly affect the river conditions here. So just because you floated in an area yesterday and it was safe doesn't mean that there won't be any safety risks there today.
According to the latest Canadian drowning report, there was an average of 485 drowning deaths per year in Canada between 2017 and 2021. Council members with the City of Lethbridge were provided with an update into the city's encampment strategy on Tuesday, which claims reported encampment activity is on the decline from this time last year. City data claims that the second quarter of this year had significantly less calls related to encampment reports, debris, needles, and biohazards. There have been over 200 less public calls over encampments and a 72% decrease from the second quarter of 2025. In total, there have been 159 311 calls in this second quarter compared to 454 calls during the same time last year. The city says they have been able to centralize services for vulnerable residents to receive help, resulting in less public visibility.
By having a system to report those as well as a resourced effort to respond to them, what we're seeing is that the general public are largely not seeing these being as visible as they once were. That has mean that our 311 numbers and the reported encampments are dropping across the community and dropping considerably, which is great to see. I think more reflective that is of coordinated efforts across Lethbridge with various outreach groups as service providers working together, as well as significant investments into our community from all three levels of government. I think what we're seeing is that takes time to get up and running and for those connections to take effect. And so this is a result of multiple years of investments from three levels of government, and I think we're one piece of that, and I think I'm hopeful that the community is seeing the results of all of those efforts.
As a result, there has also been a corresponding decrease in encampments located in low visibility coulee and grassland areas. However, the city is continuing to ask residents to report any sightings by calling 311, as the current hot temperatures could contribute to high fire risks in the valley. The town of Coaldale is conducting its annual community satisfaction survey. The public consultation gives residents the opportunity to provide feedback on town programs and service levels, including finance, taxation, governance, communication, engagement, and quality of life.
And it'll close on July 31st. And then from there, we'll enter into the analysis phase of the data. And then once that's complete, we'll be presenting the results to council. Usually we do this in September, probably their first September regular council meeting. We'll have the results ready to present to them. And that will come at a time just as they're starting to work on the next budget. The results will be used to help inform their decision making when it comes to allocating resources for the next operating budget. What it does is it makes them more confident about their decision making because it gives some objective data to look at when it comes to residents' views and how residents are thinking about priorities for how the town is run. It gives them the ability to make decisions in a way that has some real data behind them to back up and justify the decisions they're making.
The public consultation is available on the town's website at coaldale.ca. A Lethbridge resident and former U of L Pronghorn basketball star has been named to the Alberta Basketball Hall of Fame's class of 2026. Perry Murkovich is a three-time Canada West All-Star and one-time second-team All-Canadian with the University of Lethbridge. In 1980, he was selected in the NBA draft by the Portland Trail Blazers in the 6th round. He also helped Canada claim silver in the FIBA Tournament of Americas in 1980. Murkovich says playing at home with the U of L was one of his best decisions that he's ever made.
It's a real honor for sure. You know, I took a look at some of the names that are being inducted, and there's some real quality people there. Like, I was thrilled. I really was flattered, and it really is a tremendous feeling, to be involved. I got recruited to go to a few schools, and I chose U of L, close to home body, all that kind of stuff, and probably one of the best decisions of my life. The program I loved. I loved the people I played ball with, the coaching staff. I enjoyed the experience beyond belief. It changed my life forever. So playing here as a pronghorn is a highlight, and I can't say enough positive things about being a pronghorn or playing for the school.
The 10 inductees to the Alberta Basketball Hall of Fame will be honored at a gala on August 29th at the Edmonton Expo Centre. Good for him. Congratulations, Perry.
I'm Sean Haney with realagriculture.com. The Port of Vancouver handles a staggering $1 billion in trade every single day, and the federal government has just unveiled a new strategy aimed at clearing the massive bottlenecks holding our exports back. The new Port of Vancouver Gateway strategy focuses on major priorities like the Roberts Bank Terminal 2 expansion and rail infrastructure optimization. Now, this is a critical file for Canadian farmers. Vancouver is our primary gateway to global markets, especially for the Western Canadian prairies, moving $35 million worth of Canadian grain daily, along with millions of tons of prairie potash destined for the Indo-Pacific. Ag industry groups like the Grain Growers of Canada and Fertilizer Canada are calling the strategy a positive step, but they're issuing a clear warning. Expanding port facilities won't mean a thing unless it's matched by heavy rail investments back inland, including key choke points like the Second Narrows rail crossing. Building world-class port capacity means very little if our grain and fertilizer are stuck sitting on a track on the prairies. For Bridge City News, I'm Sean Haney with realagriculture.com.
General Motors will start contract negotiations with Unifor in August. The union named GM as the next U.S. automaker for contract talks after recently reaching a deal with Ford. With more on this report is Brenda Molina-Navidad with the Canadian Press.
Unifor has named General Motors as the next U.S. automaker for contract talks after reaching a deal with Ford. The union says negotiations will begin with GM on August 10th in Toronto. Unifor represents more than 4,600 members at Ontario GM facilities, including the Oshawa Assembly Plant, the Kami facility in Ingersoll, as well as operations in St. Catharines and Woodstock. The union says contract talks with GM come after successful pattern-setting negotiations with Ford. Workers at Ford approved a new 3-year contract that included 3% annual pay increases. Unifor represents 320,000 workers in Canada, including in the automotive assembly sector.
Sleep Country Canada has acquired American sleep retailer Sleep Number. The Minneapolis-based company announced in June it had agreed to combine with Sleep Country and initiated a voluntary bankruptcy sale process. Sleep Country says the deal will result in it having more than 800 store locations and becoming the world's second largest sleep retailer. Documents filed in U.S. bankruptcy court say Sleep Country agreed to pay about $702 million U.S. for Sleep Number's assets. And now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 408 to 35,369. The Dow is up 385 to 52,224. The S&P 500 was up 65 to 7,509, and the Nasdaq was up 329 to 25,837. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 208 to 84.56 U.S. per barrel. Natural gas was up 3 cents to $2.89 U.S. Gold was up 69.13 to 40.0772 U.S. an ounce, and silver was up 2.40 to 58.79 U.S. an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.44 per bushel. Barley is at $6.79. Canola is at $18.24, and corn is at $7.82 per bushel. Live cattle August contract was up 15 cents to $226.67. Feeder cattle August contract was down $2.45 to $3.49.55. Lean hogs August contract was up 22 cents to $101.50, and the Canadian dollar was even over the past 24 hours and currently sits at $70.90 US.
Recapping one of today's top stories, the threat of new tariffs from U.S. President Donald Trump has Canada's premiers demanding action from Ottawa. Saskatchewan's Scott Moe says federal negotiators need to camp out in Washington until a new trade deal is reached. Meanwhile, the Retail Council of Canada wants Prime Minister Mark Carney to think twice if he is considering retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. Toronto Sun political columnist Brian Lilley has been following this story on trade tensions between Canada and the U.S. His interview coming right up after the break. Also, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website or YouTube channel anytime to check out more of our content and poll questions.